Greetings once again, Chaotix. This is Mama Jen. So I wanted to give you guys a heads up. I recorded this video, but unfortunately because of some issues on my phone, or my tablet rather, I could not have the original sound. Today I am doing a biscuit recipe. I had a few people request that I do a video on it, and it is called Cheesy Garlic Biscuits. And I really like them. They help me to avoid the crap in a can that I call that you find at the grocery store. And it's just a really good, yummy recipe that you can use pretty much for anything if you want to. I don't really know what I'm saying all in here. Okay, so to get started, I am preheating the oven to 475 degrees. That may be a lot to some people, but that unfortunately is what you need in order to do a decent biscuit. To make these, you need flour. I'm using all-purpose flour for this recipe. Some people may use wheat, some people may do half and half. Obviously, if you know how to stretch out and alternate a recipe, you probably don't need to be watching this video. But I'm using about 6 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm also using milk, shortening, garlic, a parsley, salt, baking powder, and cheese. I'm using Colby Jack cheese, but feel free to use whatever cheese you have on hand. I've even done this with dry Parmesan cheese, the kind that you sprinkle on spaghetti, and it turned out pretty decent. You're also going to need like a spatula to scrape the bowl, a rolling pin, a baking sheet. You can use aluminum foil on top, or you can just grease it as it is, or you can use parchment paper, and a big bowl of some kind. Unfortunately, all my big bowls are in use and in the refrigerator, so I had to use a pot. Don't be intimidated if you have to use a pot to cook. Just make sure that if it's non-stick or anything like that, that obviously you're not going to use a non-stick, because those aren't good to, because once you scrape them and stuff, it's going to be bad. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to put all my dry ingredients in first, and I am putting in 6 cups of all-purpose flour. Oops, and it looks like I dropped something. And this is me counting because I'm a mom. And what are you going to do? Should stop doing that. Okay, and you're going to put the flour to the side because you're going to need it to when you roll out the biscuits. To that, I am adding 7.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and I have a half a teaspoon measurement, but I just eyeball it because that's me. The next thing you're going to add is 1.5 teaspoons of salt. If you're on a salt diet, you may want to omit the salt. It really doesn't make a huge deal, because I'm pretty sure the garlic powder has a little bit of sodium of some kind in it as well. Or if you're adding butter instead of shortening. The next thing you're going to do is 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. If you think that that is too much, you may reduce it as far as a half a teaspoon. We really like garlic. As you can see, I'm almost out of it. But again, if you want to try it out, you may go ahead and use a half a teaspoon, but considering it's such a large recipe, I like to use a little bit more. To that, I am also adding 2 teaspoons of parsley. Parsley doesn't really have a flavor effect per se on the recipe. It just helps it to look pretty, because obviously otherwise your biscuits are going to be yellow and white, and I just like something to make it look a little bit more colorful, but that's just me. The next thing I'm going to add is a cup of shortening. Feel free to use another kind of fat if you wish to. I think if you're using butter, you can do about a 3/4 a cup of butter. Some people have used other kinds of fats like coconut that are a little bit more healthier for you. Obviously, I'm not really too concerned about which fat we use, but I have used shortening, and that's what works best for us. Okay, the next thing I'm going to add is about a cup of cheese. Again, feel free to use whatever you have on hand, even if it's a little bit of each cheese or whatever you got. I added to this part because of the fact that it just helps to incorporate it more and mix it and blend it easier, because I've noticed if I add it while it's wet dough, it kind of lumps together, and that's what you don't want. The next thing I'm going to do is mix everything together. Again, if you're a beginner cook and you do not have a mixer, feel free to use your hands and get in there and just smush it all together. Your idea is that you want to get the shortening incorporated all throughout the dough. You can also use a fork if you're kind of like, ew, I don't want to touch it, but with it being a semi-decent big recipe, you may not want to do that because it probably will take forever in a day. I'm just using a mixer for speed more than anything. And you don't have to do it very long. Again, I'm just doing this mostly because it's a lot faster, and I'm trying to get the video to go faster. And that's what it should look like. As you can see, there's a bunch of clumps. That is the shortening, and that's okay. That's what you're looking for. Next to that, I am going to add 2 and about a half a cup of milk. My original recipe says 2 1/4 a cup, which is what I originally added, but as you'll see in a few seconds, I add a little bit more to make it about 2 1/2 cups. You can add as much as 2 3/4 a cup. This largely depends on what kind of fat content your milk is. Obviously, if you're going to use a skim milk, you're probably going to want it to use a little bit more. If you're using buttermilk or whole fat milk, 2 1/2, 2 1/4, somewhere around there will probably be good. And as you can see here, I'm mixing the dough together with the milk to make a wet batter. You do not want a pancake batter. You want something that's going to be obviously like sticky. And here's where I'm adding a little bit more milk. Sorry for the camera zooming in and out like that and focusing. I don't know what's going on. And once you are done mixing, I am going to flour the surface and then sit there and knead the dough a little bit. Again, my original recipe says to only knead the dough 5 times, but I have noticed if you knead it a little bit more, it's really not going to hurt the batter any. I got a little crazy here and a little excited, so you'll have to forgive me that I put a little bit too much flour on the surface. And now I am scraping out the bowl to get all the dough out. Now you're going to want to add some flour to your hands and go ahead and knead it, like I said, just a few times, just to incorporate and make sure that it's a ball and not just like falling apart, because sometimes when you add too much milk, it tends to be a little bit more softer than you expect it to be. So you just want to knead it a few times to make sure that it's a solid, semi-solid ball. Not hard, but you know. Once you get it into a ball, then make sure that you have enough flour to cover the whole area, because it's going to be a big ball of dough. You're going to get your rolling pin, you're going to flour that up, and then you're going to roll it so that it gets to be to its desired thickness. I don't have an exact measurement per se, I just kind of eyeball it. If you want really, really big biscuits, obviously you're going to make your dough thicker in thickness, and if you want a bit of a smaller biscuit or you want more biscuits, then you can make it a little bit thinner. I think the measurements are like, I don't know, 1/4 inch to like 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch, even to a full inch. Just depends on how thick you want it. Next, you're going to get, you can get a biscuit cutter if you have one, but if you don't, I do the ghetto thing and I just use my glass cups. Just make sure you flour the tip of it because sometimes, again, it's still a little soft in the middle and it will stick to the glass if you don't. Feel free to use a round cup or a square cup, whatever kind of cup you have. I've even used shot glasses, even though I don't drink. I have one somebody gave to me as a Christmas present, kind of for a joke, and I use those to make really tiny biscuits. Also keep in mind that you do not want to twist when you're lifting the glass up or the biscuit out because that will not help the biscuits to rise any. It'll actually make them a little bit flat. So when you just press down and lift up, you do not twist. Okay, and once you have all of it cut out and you can't cut out anymore, feel free to re-knead the dough and to just roll it back out again and repeat the process until you have no more biscuit dough left. Once you have that all situated and you have all your biscuits cut out and there's no more dough, feel free to put it on your baking sheet or just let them sit on the counter for about 5 minutes. Once that 5 minutes is up, go ahead and pop them in the oven. I like to keep them squished together because I feel like they rise better. However, I have no science behind that. That's just my personal preference. They will still come out even and cook even. Okay, you're going to pop these in the oven for about 11 to 13 minutes. Up to 15 minutes, sometimes depending on the weather. You may even have to put it up to 20 minutes. 13 seems to be the magic number for our house, but depending on your altitude and stuff, it may be more, it may be less. Okay, this is me taking them out of the oven. You'll have to forgive if there's any background noise from my computer. And these are my camera crew sitting here and testing the biscuits. Okay, that's about it. You can use this biscuit dough recipe to make pizza dough. If you could also make pizza bites with it and like stuffed pizza bites. I am just going to use these for breakfast. I'm not doing anything fancy with them, just with some butter, maybe some eggs. They come out pretty easy. It's pretty foolproof, and that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Bye, guys.